Maybe? It is raining. If you can't tell, I'm kind of scared my camera's gonna get. Maybe I'll like put this on top. I see the clouds breaking. It wasn't supposed to rain until 5. But listen, it's August 1st and we have to get to fall gardening because I've been so busy. Usually you do fall gardening like mid-June, mid-July. For me, it'd be mid-July because I have mild winters, but if you have more severe winters, it's like mid-June. So we're running a wee bit behind. So we gotta get on this. Let me show you what I got in mind. I got a bunch of different varieties of lettuce. We got some kale in there, some tom, butter crunch. Lettuce grows super fast, which is really nice, and it's kind of cold hardy in a way, so it can last like past well, it may not last past your first frost unless it's well established. I got a few different brassica varieties. So I got a super rapini, so it's an heirloom broccoli rahab. Broccoli rab. I don't know why that sounds weird. I think I'm mispronouncing that. For other brassicas, we have early jade broccoli. I got a bravado, which is like the green, just like a classic green broccoli, heirloom variety. I do have some heirloom red onions, which we're gonna talk about onions in a minute. It stopped raining. Thank you, Lord. Oh my gosh. I was getting so concerned because I was like, I still supposed to have 2 hours before it rains to plant. And it's always really great to, especially when you're direct sowing, to plant right before it rains because then you get free water. And with seeds, especially with direct sowing seeds, you really want it to stay moist, the soil, so that the seeds can germinate and get really well established. Bean wise, we got an heirloom bush bean variety called Provider. Kind of classic green bean situation. And then it may be too late to plant these. I should have planted them latest like mid-July, but why not give it a try, you know? This is a yard-long Noodle King pole bean. Focus. It's just so cool and I really want to try it. I also got some French breakfast radishes, and then I got container kale, green curls, because I find that container kale works really well in raised garden beds over just regular kale. Oh, and Brussels sprouts. Last year, my Brussels sprouts did really good. However, I planted them a little too late, so they didn't have time to fully grow to their best potential. Typically with broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprout, like any of the fall crops that need a longer growing time, you want to start them indoors and then transplant them once they have 4 to 5 true leaves. The one thing that I don't love about starting plants indoors during summertime is my setup system, like my growing lamps. I put them away for the summertime, you know? I don't bring them out till spring or like February, March when I go to direct sow for summer gardening. And I really choose not to bring them back out because they're just so big and bulky. So we're waiting to direct sow because all these love to germinate in warm, hot weather, but then they get super yummy and delicious when it starts cooling down. So let's get to it. We are in the Tromboncino zucchini jungle. There's a rotten melon at my feet. So there's a few things that I did already plant ahead. I planted them early July, I believe. I think I did like the week of July 4th. And that includes my butternut squash bed, which we have some butternut squash. I'll show you in a minute. However, guys, one thing I'm realizing is I had a set of cucumbers that were just not resilient at all to mildew fungus, as well as my pumpkins, my jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, because with mildew fungus, it's like a powder that's underneath your any kind of squash and zucchini leaves and sometimes cucumbers, and it spreads by wind because it's a powder, so it spreads super fast. Sometimes you could do like a peppermint and neem oil spray. I think they have like an organic all natural one on Amazon. But other than that, you just kind of have to clip the leaves early on and hope for the best. But this past week, I wasn't able to clip, and look how fast it spread. I'm just hoping for the best, to be honest. But there's definitely mildew fungus all over these leaves, which is so sad. I've been on top of it this year, except for this bed. But let me show you my little butternut squash that we got over here. Look at that little guy. I just picked 2 honey nut squash earlier, and I think, I know I saw like 2 back here, so hopefully we'll get some more. But other than that, so my jack-o'-lantern pumpkin vine is also still doing really good. I may put on like 1 or 2 pumpkins. Other than that, the peppers should last into late fall. The okra should last into late fall. Even some of my tomatoes, especially the sun gold tomatoes, should last into late fall. The melons up here and the squash. Usually I did plant a second round of sweet corn, so hopefully I'll be able to plant that come September. You can technically get a whole nother round of, these mosquitoes are so bad. You could technically get a whole, if you guys see me swatting, it's the mosquitoes. You can technically get a whole nother round of okra and beans and peppers and tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, all for fall gardening, as long as you germinate them and direct sow them in June and July. July would be the cutoff for that, because you want them to be able to grow, and you also don't want them to be overshadowed by already established plants. So like, I could not direct sow anything in this bed because all of this would shadow it, so it wouldn't actually germinate because no sun would be hitting that soil where the seed is planted. So just keep that in mind. If you're gonna do a second round, just make sure that the sun is hitting the soil where you plant. Yeah. So these are all my carrots, which this gets, whoa, I'm telling you, Tromboncino zucchini, it just continues to like create new vines, and so much zucchini. This just randomly came up. I guess it was very ripe. I've been freezing a lot of the zucchini so we can have zucchini soup during winter time, and then I can also like give it out to family and friends. I love beef stir fries with stir fries. I think I said stir fries. You like saute the beef until it's nice and brown, then you add the zucchini, and then you add a little soy sauce and make a little sticky moment. Soy sauce, brown sugar, sesame seeds, maybe even a little fish sauce. So good. As I was saying earlier, this is all my carrots, which because they get partial sun, they didn't produce as quickly this year. But some things that do produce really well in partial sun and fairly quickly is our breakfast radishes. So that will replace the carrots. And then companion planting, we're gonna do the kale, 2 different varieties, the container, which is the curly kale, and then lacinato kale, or lacinato. I really need to take a pronunciation class. And then also our bravado broccoli. With brassicas, you kind of don't want to plant multiple varieties of brassicas together since they are heavy feeders. Well, because they're heavy feeders, so they're going to compete for nutrition within the soil, but also they're going to have similar pests. So all those pests are going to be attracted to that one bed and just have a heyday. And we don't want that. We want to have our heyday. So together we're gonna pull up our carrots first. And these are like heirloom baby carrots. They're not super huge, but I did pick up some really big ones. Wow, I'm like bending over for no reason. Actually, kind of a reason. All right, let's get to it. We're gonna have some itsy bitsy ones. That was not bad. Pulling carrots is one of the most satisfying things to do. Okay, decent sizes. I feel like we're gonna have some big ones over here. Oh, look at that little baby one. Nice. Let's pull some multiples here. Look at them. They're beautiful. Oh, this has to be a big one. Oh my gosh, that has to be. Guys, lock in. This has to be a big one. Okay, it better be a big one. At this rate, we just lost the tops. Oh my gosh. Shut up. No, I broke it in half. Well, it would have been a big one. We're still gonna keep it. Look at that. In my opinion, this is the perfect carrot. Ooh, so when your cilantro bolts, don't pull it out. It's beautiful pollinator flowers, but also the seeds that are bloomed on top, once they dry, that turns into coriander. So you can grind it up just like you would buy coriander at the grocery store. I gotta stop pulling multiples because then I lose them in the soil. Some other things that I already planted was the butternut squash. The other thing I forgot to mention that I've already planted for fall was sweet potatoes. And then I'll also plant garlic, but that won't arrive until October. And that kind of gets overwintered. That won't be something we're harvesting until next spring. I think I'm going to end up pickling a lot of these carrots for the winter season because I love pickled carrots, and pickled okra are so good. I know that there is a row somewhere in this mix of heirloom purple potatoes, so when we pull that out, we'll find out if they actually survived the direct sowing. But while we're pulling these out, I thought I'd talk a little bit about some factors that play into fall gardening. And I said this in my spring/summer gardening video back in like April. Knowing your zone, your garden zone. So I'm garden zone 7B/8. Is so important because that's going to tell you your first frost date and your last frost date. So last frost date comes into play when it comes to spring, summer gardening, because you don't want to plant anything unless it's frost tolerant or cold hardy outside until after that. But then come fall gardening, you want to make sure that you've planted everything in time for it to harvest, so you can have a full first harvest before your first frost date. And how you're going to find this out is, well, first off, you can use Google to be like, Google, what zone is such and such city? You can find out what zone you're in real quick. And then use Google again and be like, Google, what is the first frost date for, it's been a long day, a long week. What is the first frost date for zone 6 or zone 5? Because it's just all gonna be so different all throughout the world, but especially across like America. And once you find out your first frost date, so for us, it can be late October to even the first week of November, which is so nice to have a long growing season. But then you're gonna flip your seed packet around and it's gonna say days to harvest on the back of it. So you wanna calculate how many days it's gonna be that you need to plant before your first frost date. If you want multiple weeks of being able to pick, plant a little earlier. But then you also have to be careful because sometimes beans don't love heat. So all my beans, I have to plant either spring or fall because it gets super, super hot here. Like we had a heat wave for 4 days in a row where it was like 100 degrees and just no rain. And the beans all died during that. It's kind of cool how creation works. Should we try for a purple carrot? Let's see, I think they're, oh, this is gonna be a big, every time the green come off. That's not a big one, that's just a chunky one. Come on, let's find some purple ones. Okay, I see the label for the purple. I'm not sure many survived. Ooh, I see slugs back here. Maybe the slugs got them. They're itsy bitsy. I'm not sure, you guys. I'm just not quite sure. Here's all the carrots I was able to pull. There's some bigger ones back here. They're almost the size of my hand. Not too bad. The big ones are kind of underneath. And then there's a ton. Oh, I did find just one purple carrot. So that was really fun. We'll eat these fresh and then I'll pickle the rest. I'm reusing the old labels, so I'm gonna plant everything in rows and just scratch out like the old Armenian cucumbers for the breakfast radishes. And then that'll be one row. And for the radishes, I like to just create a little row with my finger, create a little indent in the soil. And for the radishes, and this is for most peas and carrots as well, you're going to plant them about 1/2 inch deep and 1 inch apart. I'm just gonna add a little bit of soil so that they're 1/2 inch deep buried. We want that soil nice and loose. We don't want to compact it down, and we also want to make sure that we are keeping it nice and moist since August is pretty hot. And so it can easily dry out, which will prevent germination. Ooh, found some carrots. More carrots. This bed had my popcorn, my heirloom popcorn that I just picked. So if you want to see that, go to Instagram because I show the harvest of it. It's like this beautiful purple color and it's curing and hanging in the kitchen. So I can't wait to dive into that and have homemade popcorn, or I guess freshly grown popcorn. I went ahead and filled the bed with a lot of flowers, which these are a ton of just beautiful zinnias, cosmos, gorgeous wildflowers from a wildflower mix I spread on it back in April, and they're just now blooming, and there's sweet corn in the middle of that bed, which it should, the wildflowers have kind of outgrown it, so I'm hoping that the sweet corn is getting enough sun to harvest. For this bed though, we're gonna add our Yard Long Noodle King pole beans. Yard Long Noodle King, such a great name for a bean. And then we're also gonna do the heirloom bush beans provider variety. Beans are great for being a companion plant with peppers or truly like any heavy feeders such as corn, watermelon, squash, because it's gonna help add nitrogen back into the soil. It's gonna like capture all that nitrogen from the air, bring it into the soil. It's quite fascinating how it works. So again, I just reused 2 old labelers. I'm basically gonna do this half bush beans, that half pole beans, and I'm gonna try to make sure that when I direct sow, there's enough space that the sun is seeping through. So I'm not gonna like put them underneath the already established plants, because then they won't get sun and then they won't germinate. With most beans, you want them about an inch deep and 4 inches apart, because they're gonna grow nice and tall. So I'll probably have to put some homemade like bamboo stick arch to help support them. And again, we're just gonna give this a nice good watering after we're finished. I'm running out of space. This is my 3-year sage. Sage and thyme grow back time after time. That smells so good. They grow back year after year, which is awesome, and they'll get bigger and produce more and more. And I honestly think more flavorful too. Sage smells so good. I'm so excited for all things like brown butter sage pasta this fall. It's crazy that it's already August 1st and that fall is like so close. That came out way easier than I was expecting it to. So I'm gonna pull my nasturtiums, because these are more of a spring crop rather than a summer crop. So they're kind of dying. I'm also noticing I need to do some weeding. Got some grass in there. I'm gonna do the remainder of my breakfast radishes right here so that they can get some sun. And then I think I'm gonna put my Brussels sprouts with the butternut squash plants that I showed y'all a little bit earlier. I was going to put them here, but you can see my marigolds that I haven't yet planted, but I plan on putting them there. Oh my gosh, never mind. There's a million snails. That's lovely. So the reason I am going to plant the butternut squash and the Brussels sprouts together is because they're gonna have similar cool weather needs. If I planted them with the peppers could outgrow them, shade them. They also have different needs, so it's not awesome to plant summer crops with fall/winter crops unless it's like garlic. Garlic and onions are great because they help to deter a lot of pests for basically any crop. Just because there's different pests and needs, the longer like different growing seasons. Something to think about long-term wise when you go to plant your summer garden is finding a section of your garden that can all be pulled at the end of summer. Do I do that? No, but do as I say, not as I do. Hello, good girl. So for instance, turnips in the springtime. I pulled out all my turnips just in time to plant my okra for the season, and then the okra takes over that whole garden space for the rest of the growing season. You could do like the carrot bed. If you had a designated carrot bed, you know that those are gonna be pulled up by mid-June, mid-July, which is perfect. Pull them up, plant all your fall crops in that bed. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like successional planting, where you're able to plant for a certain amount of time, pull it up, and then you plant the next succession of crops. If you want to do a little extra planning, extra thinking, it's a great way to keep growing as long as possible. Fall is also a really great time to start any succession planting for herbs. So think basil will have a shorter lifespan, it might not grow as big, but if your basil's dying back, you can either give it a good clip or you could plant some more. Dill, it's a great time for thyme, oregano, sage, rosemary. Those will last well into the fall season and early summer. In this instance, where there's a lot of big leaves, again, we want to keep in mind where are those sunny spots where the sun can penetrate into the soil to make sure our seeds germinate. And this is very limited seeding, so we might not have as many Brussels sprouts this year. Usually I'd recommend labeling each seed that you plant, but sometimes you can just live on the edge and hope you remember, or look back at videos. You are not allowed to grow in here. Look at that weed. Well, I got you guys some zucchini pruning tips. This is how you're gonna get your big zucchini plants. 1, to save space, grow it vertically. Get a bamboo stick, use some twine, have that baby crawl right up straight into the air. There are some trellis varieties like escalator zucchini, which I grow on my trellis, and the trombotrino zucchini, love those varieties for the trellis. But everything else, it can still grow vertically. You just might need to help encourage it that way. I also recommend trimming those extra leaves as much as possible. It's gonna help prevent that, which is that powdery mildew fungus I talked about, because that is, I'm pretty sure, fact check me guys, is a soil disease. So you don't really want your leaves touching the soil because it's more prone to disease like that. And also this helps by trimming it, so you only have the healthiest 4 to 5 leaves on top of your zucchini plant is really gonna help it to redirect the energy into fruit production or vegetable production. And you can do this with your tomato plants, your cucumber plants, basically any plant with a ton of leaves. Give it a nice good trim as a seedling and as it continues to grow so that you only have the healthiest 4 to 5 leaves on top, and those are what's going to attract all that sun, all the nutrition, and then put all that energy back into the fruit making. And burn these leaves, aka throw them in the trash. I already got a little bit of lacinato kale growing around like June, and I was able to do this because the okra got tall enough where it provided it enough shade from all that harsh sun. Ow! Arugula, it is one of my favorite things to grow every spring and fall. It also comes back year after year. Well, it at least comes back for the following year. It's really easy and it doesn't require a lot of maintenance, doesn't require a lot of watering, grows super fast. So I highly, let me get all these old labels out of here, highly recommend planting some arugula right now. And then you'll have it, I mean, I don't want to guarantee anything, but almost positively it will come back in the spring on its own. And for this, I kind of just sprinkle it around. And then I'll grab some loose soil and just lightly dust it. All right, lastly, we have our two broccolini varieties. We have our broccoli rahab, which is super rapini. I thought that was a bug for a minute on my shoulder. And then we have our early jade, which is our Chinese broccoli variety. I cleared out a little bit of stuff that just wasn't gonna finish its growing season. So some corn that hadn't gotten tall enough, I knew it wasn't gonna get finished growing because it was just baby. Then there was just like a lot of weeds that I thought was plants. That's why you take a good look before you assume the worst case scenario, which left kind of a lot of space. So I'm gonna split it in half, metaphorically. I have my little marker, so I'm gonna do half for one of each, and we're gonna hope for the best. And the rest is just wildflowers, so those are great companions because they're great pollinators. I also have so much rhubarb, like my rhubarb plants. I found 3-year crowns that someone was shipping online, and I felt like I found them on the black market because you never find 3-year rhubarb crowns. You always find like 1 to 2 years, and then you have to wait till the 3-year mark. So I'm really excited for next year being the 4th year, because there's probably like at least 12 on the one behind me and to the one to the right of me, like 20 stalks. So I'm hoping we have a lot of rhubarb, juicy, sweet, tart rhubarb next year. And then we'll have so many rhubarb recipes. Can't wait. That's the early jade. This is super. Again, we're just gonna create, first off, when I pull stuff up, it does kind of aerate the soil, but it's also nice to just till it, whether it be with an actual tiller, a little shovel, or, you know, as I often do with my hands. And I do like to create some sort of systems, like little row. That way I at least know my spacing is right. And you can always thin it out if you add too many. When they get about like 2 to 3 of their true leaves, that's a good point to thin it out. Broccolini likes to not be planted super deep, about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just gonna very gently spread it out and then lightly sprinkle soil on top, similar to the arugula. We are finished direct sowing all of our fall seeds, which I apologize guys, I did not get this done earlier in the video up earlier, but I did at least want you guys to know what I was doing when it comes to next year's gardening season. Then you have all the videos from this gardening season to look back on. But yeah, once we're done planting all our seeds, you want to give it a really nice soak. The trick is to do it, which thankfully this week is going to be a bit rainy. Tomorrow is going to have a nice downpour. The trick is to plant right before really good rain. It just kickstarts you off with all the nutrition, just a really good watering. Even better if it waters several days in a row. If not, just for the first week until it germinates, or you can see on the back of the packet how many days it takes to germinate. Just make sure that that soil is staying moist. When it comes to planting later in the summer season, thankfully the sun is not staying out as long and it's not as hot as maybe in May and in June. So that works to your benefit. Another quick tip for fertilizing, I believe I talked about this in my last gardening video, but NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. When you go to plant seeds and baby seedlings and things like corn where it's more leafy than it is fruity for at least a good portion of its life, that's where you want to fertilize with a high nitrogen fertilizer. Then as you see it start setting on fruit, like you see little blossoms that are about to turn into fruit, that's where you want to lower down that nitrogen and increase the phosphorus, the P, and then the K, potassium. So the last 2 digits of that NPK number that they should have on your fertilizer. If it doesn't, I'd be a little skeptical of it. So that's why I will use fish fertilizer to start off all of these, and I'll probably fertilize them once they start having about 4 to 5 of their true leaves, and then I'll fertilize them every 2 weeks, just as with the gardening season, because they can't just live off of soil and water alone. We need our multivitamins. That goes for you and I as well. Look at this little handy thing my papa got me. It's very functional. But sometimes it can take like 30 minutes to water this whole garden. 45 during the heat of summer when everything needs a really deep watering. Oh, that's another really great thing. So after your plants are pretty well established, they really only need watering 2 to 3 times a week. Just make sure it's a nice deep water, because what your root system will do is it will go downward, which is what we want, because that means a stronger plant, and a stronger plant means more blossoms and more fruit and a bigger harvest, as long as you're deeply watering it 2 to 3 times per week. If you're just giving it a nice little surface looks wet, then it's not penetrating down into the soil. Other than that, thanks for joining me in my fall gardening. I'll keep you guys updated with how everything goes. Hopefully a lot of the summer produce will just continue and we'll have a later first frost date. That would be awesome. I'm gonna miss summer, but I'm also excited for all like the coziness and the slowing down for fall, because it's been a really crazy summer. Working on some fun projects I can't wait to share with you guys. Oh, we're doing a new farm to table soon. That's so fun. Like, I'm freaking out, so I can't wait. So I'll see you guys then. Okay, bye guys.